listening to Power Trading Radio, live, fueled by Online Trading Academy. To learn more, visit us online at powertradingradio.com.
Welcome back to Power Trading Radio, everyone, for Taxation Day. We only have this show once every few months. It seems like you haven't been on very long. We've got Michael Atias here in studio. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
I'm happy to have you, and I'm sure our listeners, well, they may not think they're happy to have you on the program. Like, oh, just show me the stocks to buy. Trader taxation is a topic I like talking about because it is an area where most people have no clue what they're doing. They just think, I'm just going to trade, I'm going to make some money, and at the end of the year, I'll just do my taxes. And the truth of the matter is, by doing that, they're literally throwing money out the window.
Absolutely. You know, the best way to increase your rate of return is to cut your tax bill. That's I don't know if you guys know this little secret, but that's the best way of increasing your rate of return. It's so secretive that, you know, but yeah, and you have to know what to do. You have to have strategies like anything else. It's great. A lot of people try to say, I'm trying to find out about taxation from reading. So that's great. It's just like learning how to cure a disease by going to WebMD. That's great. You still need a doctor. You still need that professional to escort you there and tell you on those intersections where you need to go left or right.
Yeah. It's always great getting going in for surgery, and the guy says, "This is my first day today." Let's go to I want to go to this question from Eric because I think it kind of sets up for the show here. It's great. Congrats, Eric. Sounds like you're doing great. He says, so far in 2015, I'm having my best trading year by far. Thanks to what OTA and you have taught me, I have eclipsed 100% gains for the first time ever. Fantastic. 2015 is a good year to be doing that. My question is about taxation on those gains. As I've not paid taxes so far, so I'm expecting a big hit. What can I do to keep my tax exposure as low as possible, or is it too late?
Well, you know, it's never too late when the year is not over. However, this gentleman here is somewhat limited with what he can do because he was probably trading as an individual. Mm-hmm. He probably didn't form up a business or anything like that. So the way he can capture some of his expenses is by trying to qualify as a trader as an individual. And we know the IRS doesn't really like that. They scrutinize that. And if we go to the details, you'll see why they find that out, because basically they want you to report your expenses on one form called Schedule C, mm-hmm. and then they want you to report your trades, another form called Schedule D, in which creates a problem, because when you look at Schedule C, it just stands for income from a business, all you see is expenses.
Right.
And without you guys being experts, how do you think about that? When you see only expenses, do you see this person is in it for making money, or more like maybe a sham or something like that? I don't want to use too harsh words. So that's the problem. But you can still qualify, and you still need a trader taxation expert, somebody like us in OT Taxers that we specialize in traders and investors. However, this is a good thing for everybody else out there. So we always tell people, you know, you got to think successful, right? You got to think, I'm going to make $100,000 next year or this year. And therefore, you got to plan ahead. You got to think 2 steps ahead. And then, therefore, you got to do the tax planning ahead of time. So what I would suggest this gentleman, if he had called me, say, 9 months ago, is, you know, I think we should probably consider setting yourself up as a business. Mm-hmm. And then we can explore a lot of different tax strategies that can reduce your tax liability by thousands of dollars.
You know, so let's look at it from 2 perspectives. So, Eric, I don't know which camp you fall into. If you want to let us know, send it in, whether you are just an individual or if you have a corporation or you're declared a trader status. Let's go from just the average person. So let's say the average person, they take a class with OTA, they've been following the XLT, the mastermind, they're getting more proficient, and they had a blowout year. Obviously, triple-digit gains in a year is pretty damn good. So now you're sitting on this stockpile of cash, and you're not paying taxes as you go along, right? You know, in businesses, you generally pay taxes as you go along, your quarterly, but in trading, you generally don't. So, there's going to be a big tax hit. What could Eric do if it's an individual to go back and is there a way to restructure the way they're doing things? Obviously, the declaring trader status is a big step.
Right. So declaring trader status opens up all of the traditional business expenses that any other business person could claim. We're talking about car expenses, mm-hmm. home office, phone, travel. Internet, travel. You can even write off your uniform. So traders don't wear uniforms, but you can stitch on your shirt a logo that says, Maryland's Trading Company, and there you have it. Now you can write off your shirts. What about your cufflinks, your famous cufflinks? You can customize those.
And I just talked to you earlier. I spent a grip of money on these cufflinks.
I know. So there's a lot of different things you can do, and they all add up. You can't find something as $100,000, hammer, but you can find little ones that add up to that. And of course, the classic stuff, creating your own retirement plan. I know you talk a lot about that in your show about the self-directed plans. Yeah. Well, you guys, you can put up to, if you're married, up to $118,000 a year. So right there you can stash away all your gains. And you don't lose the capability of trading those monies again when you have a truly self-directed plan. So there's a lot of different things. You just have to have the proper person to help you with the planning and help you ahead of time. And I mean, we still have some time to the end of the year, but we only have about 3 months.
Right. So I think that's an interesting point because we talk about self-directed IRAs and 401ks, et cetera. For most people doing a Roth IRA or a self-directed IRA, if you're just an average person, you're looking at, what, $5,000, $5,500 max right now?
If you're doing an IRA, it's $5,500, and if you're over 50, you can do $6,500. It's still relatively a small amount.
Right.
You compare it to a 401k, it's $53,000 if you're under 50, and it's $59,000 if you're over 50. So it's big money. Again, if you're married, then your spouse can do the same thing, and you can have your spouse as part of an employee in your company. So another strategy we talk with people to see which one is right. Now, but another thing I wanted to add is, it depends also what Eric is trading. He may want to trade something that is not stocks or equities. I'm not sure what he's trading, but maybe futures or Forex, where you can opt out to Section 1256 of the IRS, where you basically get a 60-40 split.
Right.
So 60% of your gain is long-term gain, and 40% is short-term gain. So your blended rate is substantially reduced from the traditional ordinary income tax rate. So I mean, there's a lot of different things that you can change.
And Eric, we could go one step further with this, and I don't know anything about is this your sole source of income? Are you working another job? Because that also factors into this, because you're going to be putting yourself in higher and higher tax brackets. So I would look at this as this kind of chess piece we've talked about many times. It's a chessboard where you're thinking right now with this question about how you can save as much money with the earnings that you made from your trading exclusively. I think what Michael would say is let's figure out how to incorporate that into all aspects of your income. So you've got your normal, W-2 income, maybe some 1099 income. Combine that with your trading income, and then find ways that we can offset and write off certain pieces here, which could potentially drop you in lower and lower tax brackets. But it can't be thought of individually. You can't just go, well, my trading money is going to be treated like this, my W-2 is going to be treated like that. It needs to be a cohesive, just like your trading plan, has to all be all-encompassing.
Absolutely. We have to have a comprehensive plan, and when we do consultations with our students or their general public, we ask them to share with us their most recent tax returns. We ask them to share us some of their financials so we understand what state do they live, how much money they've got, what are they trading, what are their goals. Everything kind of falls in together. And I think your analogy of a chess game, it really is like that. It's a lot of moving parts. You got to make sure they're all going in the same direction.
And if I put this one here, well, what does that expose me to with those other ones?
You could have a checkmate. The IRS, you don't want to lose the IRS, right?
No, the IRS checkmate is probably the worst one you can get yourself into.
Is.
All right, so circling back to with the self-directed IRA, you mentioned $118,000 a year?
That's for the self-directed 401k.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Good.
The IRA is limited. You can only do $6,500. That's even if
that's
you're
why
over
it caught
50.
me. I was like, wait a minute,
Right.
because I was like, I'll open up a self-directed one. So, but you could with what the potential for Eric here is those gains could put that into a 401k, so he'd have to create his own 401k and self-directed through his company, right?
Right. He has to have a company first. In order to have a 401k, you have to have earned income. So what we got to do usually is we create a business for that. So we achieve target number one. We have a business. We can use all the different tax strategies. Now we also are able to do the self-directed 401k, which is the second stage, which is a standalone entity, basically. You don't need any custodians. You are it. You can manage everything. It's really, really easy to manage it. But the capabilities are immense.
Yeah, obviously being able to funnel away $118,000. Of course, I'm sure that Eric probably wants to keep some of those profits and use them.
Right, yeah, you don't have to put everything, right.
Well, but you've talked about in the past where we, with a 401k, and I was actually working on some of the Financial Matters courses recently where you could actually borrow money out of a self-directed IRA, et cetera, and potentially use that as loans for other purposes and pay yourself interest on it. So it's a way to not pay taxes on it right now, to defer it all, but you can still use that money. It doesn't have to necessarily just be in a portfolio of mutual funds. Absolutely,
and that $50,000 loan that you can take, and your spouse, if he is a part of the plan, it's $100,000. Well, here's just a technique I used today in the Financial Matters course that you bring up. I told somebody that if they have credit card debt, consumer debt, that is not a tax write-off. You're better off taking a loan against from your 401k and paying that consumer debt. Now you're going to reduce substantially your interest rate you're paying from 18-20% to basically 3 to 4%.
And increase your credit score at the same time.
At the same time. So, I mean, like you achieve, so you see in taxation, in our specialties, because we understand business, we bring everything together. Yeah. We look at the whole picture and try to give you the best solution for your situation.
As they should, guys. If you are interested and want to know a little bit more, we've got the page up here. You can contact OTA Tax Pros. We've had them on the program many times. We got a great team down there to help people specifically with trader taxation, but they can handle all areas of your taxes as well. To get more information, you can visit otataxpros.com. Michael Atias is with us. When we come back, I've got another question here about year-end strategizing, which is something we usually save that till November, but you know what? Why not start strategizing now? So look at that when we come back after a short break. If you have questions for Michael or myself, send them in at powertradingradio.com. We will be right back.
You've been listening to Power Trading Radio, live, fueled by Online Trading Academy. To learn more, visit us online at powertradingradio.com.
Welcome back to Power Trading Radio, everyone. We're here with Michael Atias talking trader taxation, which is something probably many of you dread, and I understand. I mean, dealing with the IRS can be one of the worst things ever. I would say DMV might be neck and neck with the IRS, but hey, when you have someone like Michael and his team on your side, it really puts you at ease because you now will know exactly what are the red flags for you, how you can allocate your capital in an area that will get you more money in the long run. We had a great question from Eric in Dallas. Eric, thank you so much. He was asking about the gains that he's made. What can he do to kind of keep more of that? A lot of it goes to strategizing. Incorporating is another big factor, declaring trader status. If any of that stuff is gray area, you can contact Michael Atias and his team at OTA Tax Pros. I want to go to this one about year-end strategizing. Now, look, most people start to think about their taxes like April 12th. Right? I mean, and you know, because you get all these people, there's like a line out the door. It looks like a Who concert or something. They're just, help me, Michael, I need help. Extension. What are some of the big bullet point items that you would say to traders or people listening to the show, because we have a lot of Online Trading Academy graduates and people who aren't Online Trading Academy graduates who are trading actively, making some money out there. What are the big kind of things they should consider going into the year end?
Well, you always want to look at, it depends on the business side or we're talking about the personal side. So let's talk a little bit about the personal side so everybody can do that. So a lot of times you want to look into making an additional mortgage payment because typically the way it works with mortgage payment is you're paying for the month that was, not like rent where you're paying ahead of time. So what happens if you pay it on January 1st, well, it's already going to next year. So all you want to do is just make that one extra payment at the end of the year. You earn an extra full interest payment. That's one thing. Another thing you can do as an individual is potentially prepay your property tax. I know how in California property taxes are very high, and in some of the other states like Texas and others, I mean, you guys are paying a lot. I mean, almost to upwards of 4%. So it could be a substantial amount. And specifically, people in, say, in Texas, they don't have any state income tax to build their itemized deduction.
Right.
So, things like that is something you can do. And, of course, look at donations. You're planning to make them. It's better to make them before the year's over than after the year's over. And then obviously always look at the year that was and the year that will be. What do I mean by that? You want to look at what your income is going to be this year, what's going to be next year, and if you have a deduction that you can choose to pick this year or next year, pick it in the year where you have more income.
Right.
Okay? I'll give you a story that I had a client that had two properties that he wanted to sell. Okay? And he wanted to sell first both of them at the same time. Because in one he had a loss and the other had a gain, he thought he will offset each other. But when we actually did the analysis and we used the tax software, we found out that he's better off claiming the gain of the property in 2015 and the loss in 2016. You might ask, how does that work? Yeah. Because if technical items like alternative minimum tax and other things that affect that individual, it actually turns out it's better to split the two transactions. Now, he didn't know that.
Yeah.
His assumption was, hey, gain, loss, let's offset them, right?
Because that's logical.
That's logical, but taxes are not logical.
Right.
We're talking about the IRS. So every time you think, oh, I've got it, this is simple, it's a piece of cake, it's not always a piece of cake. It's not what it seems to be. You always want to consult with somebody. And that's on the individual level. Of course, there's more tips that we can share with people.
It's interesting. Almost what you just said there, it just struck a chord because trading is what I do, but it almost reminds me of back testing. Where someone has this idea, well, I'm going to do a 3-period and a 29-period moving average crossover system and just test it and see how it works. And you look at it and you go, no, that didn't work. You try different numbers. In that guy's scenario, or that individual's scenario, the logic thing would be, I've got a gain in one, a loss in the other, the loss set, and just move forward. And by plugging in the different numbers into, and obviously you have all the calculators and the formulas, that's the difference, because we don't.
Right. So once we have the person's information, that's what we ask that from the student. We put that in our tax software. We have one of the best tax softwares out there, very expensive software, where it allows us to do a lot of projections, and we put the information in there, and we say, what happens if we do this? What happens if we do that? And sometimes, even though you know where you're going with, sometimes the software will surprise you, because these calculations of, say, alternative minimum tax, they're not intuitive. Okay, so you have to kind of put the stuff in the software and get the result. You know, I mean, you want to do that, and you out there don't have this. So if you're trying to do this for TurboTax, please, I suggest something different. You know, like I said, it's like trying to cure yourself through WebMD. Now, even if you find that you need this, operation, are you going to do it yourself?
Probably not.
I don't recommend.
I'm going to say no on that
I don't recommend that.
I might just put a rubber band on it and let it fall out. But
what the internet is great about is gives you information. But nowadays, when we have so much information, you know how to screen it.
Yeah.
What is right and what is wrong, and that is what the average person may not be able to do.
So with the personal side, those are some great points. You actually got me all peaked there. Now from the trading side, or no, that was personal. Let's go
on the business side.
Business side. Let me ask one question before we dive into that, because I want to make sure we get to it before we run out of time. For an individual like Eric, who let's assume that he's just doing this like a normal person. He just started trading, made a bunch of money. He's not incorporated. Is there a certain point where, let's say he's got all this profits, he should just look back and incorporate, and can he go back and itemize costs and say, look, I can get 6 months or I can get a year of all these expenses to offset some of those gains?
So one of the things that we look is we want to see where that individual is at. If we're seeing that this individual is on a trajectory to be a professional trader or a trader in security status, then we say, okay, let's look at what you had in the past. Maybe we can't capture it quite in 2015, but maybe we can capitalize all and call it startup costs. And put it on a business entity for 2016. So you don't lose it all together. Maybe you lose a portion of it, what you can use, but at least you maintain the majority of it, and you'll be able to use it for 16, 17, moving forward, depending on what category of expense you had.
All right, so you can recoup some of that. It's all kind of how you declare it and lock it in for the...
So that's something we discussed with you, Eric, that we discussed some of your options, and you'll know which one is the one right for you.
I brought this up here. I might as well bring it up again. This is OTA Tax Pro's website. For those of you that might have questions for Michael and his team, you can contact them. Go to otataxpros.com and see a little video about their organization. You can also click on the contact button here. The phone number to call to get in touch with Michael and his team, it's tax-free. It's 855-OTA-PROS. That's 855-682-7767. You mentioned to me a while back that you were doing a bunch of webinar series. I know that this was something that a lot of our listeners were interested in, to kind of get a little bit more familiar with the taxation part. Are you still doing those?
We're actually working on a new different webinar series that we'll have each month, and we'll have a different webinar topic. And that will probably be available towards the end of this year. So we'll run it every month. And every month it's going to be a different topic depending on the time of the year. So one of them is going to be a year in planning, one of them is going to be about retirement, and so on and so forth. So topics that will interest everybody.
Now you mentioned, you swung by my office earlier, and we were talking about retirement planning a little bit, and that was definitely an area that I think is near and dear to the proactive investing side of things, because we definitely need to think about long-term investments and capital gains, et cetera. What's your take on retirement planning? What little caveats from the taxation side do you have?
Well, retirement planning is obviously very important, because you want to use the advantages of what retirement allows you, which is deferring your income. Again, anytime you don't pay tax on something, this is one of the best principles in taxation, is defer any income you can. And
unless you're making almost nothing now, then
right. There's exception to the rule, but generally, if you're making money and you're not living on the streets, then you want to defer income as much as you want. Then the second principle is taking expenses that are currently personal and making them into business expenses. Okay, so now you've dipped into that world. And then, of course, there's all these more elaborate tax strategies. Now, as far as retirement planning, it's key, but you just have to make sure you're in the right plan. Do you want to have a traditional? You want to have a Roth? Is it a 401k, an IRA, maybe some other plan? Which plan is the right for you? Well, that depends on also what you plan to do. If you tell me, hey, I plan to retire at 50 or 60 or 65, and I'm going to have $1 million or 2 or 3, depending on all of that, we can create that. One of the things we do in the self-directed programs that we have is we actually have a plan that has traditional and Roth at the same time. So you're able to decide at what point you want to shift from traditional to Roth or from Roth to traditional. And we, of course, give you that advice. We support you throughout the process.
Lots of stuff to think about there, guys. Obviously, taxation is an extremely important topic, and one of the things I read a book a while back. I didn't read through it. I don't like reading, but I flipped through, and it was actually at the suggestion of one of my really good friends who he basically said, I am no longer that name anymore. I'm my corporation called that name. And I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, look, in my life, because he ran some businesses, but he did them as an individual. He says, in my life, I've run these businesses, and all these expenses I've had to pay for out of my tax dollars, after-tax dollars. He says, now that I have a business, I can do it all with pre-tax dollars and give myself a lot more money down the road. So instead of me going out to lunch with friends that I might be working with in a business venture in the future, and that's all just going to be paid for me by me out of pocket, I can now do that through my corporation. That all gets reimbursed to me, and now that lowers my total overall income. And basically, you're getting things at a discount.
Right, correct. This is one of the major concepts we talk about in Financial Matters education program.
Be the best.
Is we said, hey, you can create wealth in two ways, as an individual or as a business. The way it works is when you work as an employee, who gets paid first? It's not you. It's the government and the Social Security and Medicare and the state and everybody else, right? And it could be up to 62% if you live in California. That's crazy.
And you get what's left.
And you get what's left, as opposed to if you have a business, guess what? You have a car? Okay, a portion of that is business. Oh, you have a phone? Okay, a portion of that or all of that is business. And so on and so forth. And even going out to lunch with friends. Who says your friends can't be your clients? All you got to do is say, bring up a business discussion. You don't have to talk an hour about business.
Nope.
Only about a couple of minutes, and you're good to go. That's it. It doesn't have to be recorded, documented in any way. Just that you had a meeting with these people, and that's it. Now that meal is deductible. Same thing, by the way. You like sports?
Love them.
You can go to see a Lakers game. Maybe not that good that much,
not
but maybe something else. Go watch the Dodgers, let's say, okay?
Not a chance. You got two teams that I think are the armpit of their sport. So.
Okay, so any other team that you guys like, but the idea is, for example, if I wanted to pick your brain, and I want to just have an hour with you without the radio and everything else, and I say, you know what, Marilyn, I'm going to take you to this game. You want to come? You say, of course. Now, while we drive to the game, I got an hour with you. I could pick your brain all you want.
Trapped in an hour with
Michael. An hour with me in traffic in LA, maybe even 2 hours. So in that case, I picked your brain, and now I can write off those tickets. Those tickets are expensive. I mean, we're talking about NBA games here. It's like $150 a ticket. So
for nosebleeds.
Exactly. And maybe, I don't know if I want to spend that kind of money on you. So
that's
maybe
okay. That's all right.
Maybe I'll just take you to an Angels game, day game for $5.
They're out of the playoffs anyway.
Exactly.
Guys, listen, there's so much more to talk about taxation. We could do a whole week show. As a matter of fact, there is a program specifically on trader taxation and taxation to learn more about it, or just to talk to Michael Atias and his team about how he might be able to shuffle some things around and get a consultation and figure out how to best suit this to fit your needs. You can contact him at OTA Tax Pros, or you can visit the website. The numbers there is also 855-OTA-PROS. That's 855-682-7767. Michael, thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure.
I hope you get everything prepped for the end of the year, because I know it's going to be busy for you.
Thank you.
Guys, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I have some economic announcements and earnings announcements for tomorrow's trading session. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.